The topic today is replacing your lawn with water-wise California native plants. Within each slide that has plants of note on them, I will be listing the name of the plant, common name first, horticulture or botanic name second, and that way, because usually they're better known by the common name, but the common names are really unreliable. Don't go to the nursery with just the common name. Please always go to the nursery with a botanical name. And that's it. So this is a meadow in the backyard of a Palo Alto garden. And the homeowner is one of those Silicon Valley guys who has his startup company have their summer picnics or parties in the backyard. And he enjoys replenishing and touching up his meadow every year so that the people that come are able to enjoy it. It's kid-friendly, dog-friendly. It's also weed-friendly.
Does he water?
Yes, and and throughout here, please feel free to ask questions. If it gets where it gets too much in detail, we'll take it afterwards. We'll discuss more afterwards. But this is a meadow that is irrigated by overhead spray. The rest of the garden, which is 100% native plant, is all irrigated by drip. So with meadows and grasses, overhead spray is very, very good because the structure of the plants themselves. There's maybe just a couple of perennials in this meadow, but most of them are grasses or juncus, or where the leaf structure actually directs the water down into the soil at the base of the plant. And so that's why with lawns or meadows, overhead spray works really well. Yay. Okay, so just a little bit of truth here is, especially since World War II and the expansion of suburbia, the ideal home included at least one patch of green. And this is a classic World War II poster, post-World War II. Despite war restrictions, America's living standard is still the world's best, thanks to U.S. industrial progress. Yes, and every single house has a chicken in every pot and a lawn in every front yard. And I thought this was very appropriate because bringing us up to date. Not only is she trying to be eco-friendly with a push mower, but she's talking on her cell phone. That's how you get your kids to do yard work. But, of course, for those of us, anybody who moved here from some other place, it's a really different climate. Even those of us who have grown up here or were born here, then all the garden magazines we get have the beautiful green, glossy, lush. I say, what kind of garden would you like? Oh, I'd like it lush. Okay, so we are in semi-arid land, Central California, not in Cleveland. This is my dad and my niece back in Cleveland, where it rains throughout the entire summer. You already know that. So in California, we learn to adjust our kaleidoscope to see things a little bit differently. If we have chances to go out and walk in the wild, the colors are different. It's a Ralph Lauren as opposed to a Chanel look. So this is, in fact, a wild location right on Carmel Bay up in the dune area with monkey flower and California sagebrush. And what a great color combination. What a lovely structural combination. And yet, we're not familiar with this. Usually a lot of the regular nurseries maybe carry a monkey flower, but it's been a hybridized one as opposed to the straight species. And California sagebrush, they both get kind of scruffy in the fall and the winter. So how do you take care of them in your garden so they don't just look like brown sticks? We'll be talking about that. So some of you probably already know this, I'll just repeat it. What is unique about our summer dry Mediterranean climate? It is that there's only 5 places on this earth that have this similar climate. and that is California, west coast of the United States, west coast of central Chile, west coast of South Africa, parts of the Mediterranean that are all on the western wind side, and west coast of Australia. Why? Why is that? Does anybody else go to the microclimates this morning? Didn't she do a fabulous, I loved that presentation. It was, I'm sorry? She is so good. I want to take more classes from her. Nice, nice. Yeah, so what are some of the factors here, do you think, why we have the kind of climate that we have? Ocean current, yay! You took notes. They're all on the westerly side, right? And they're all, I'm sorry?
They're all on the mid-latitudes.
Exactly, yeah, midway between the polar and the equator, both north and south. I'm sorry? Temperature, yeah. That location with the way the world turns, with the ocean currents, all the factors, and then we just learned that there's the big glob of warm, I forget what it is, warm air? Or high pressure areas in each of these right here, around each of these areas that really, really influences how the air and the temperature and the moisture come in onto the land. So we're very unique. Also, the idea that was mentioned this morning, these three areas of California, Central Chile, and Western Africa are especially unique in that low pressure area and how it affects. So at any rate, yes, we are in a very special area. We didn't even realize. So we live in what we consider a California floristic province. And because floristic provinces and nature do not follow political boundaries, some of this floristic province go up into Oregon and go down into Baja, but basically on the west side of the Sierra Nevadas, as well as the west side of the deserts, and south of what's called the Vancouverian floristic province. So this is all where the long dry summers, shorter wet winters that we experience, foster plants that look and act differently than those in the Common Garden magazines. And I'll take this opportunity to talk about succulents. They go really well in sandy soil because all of our California succulents are coastal. Or they occur on very rocky soils that have very good drainage. They are not desert plants, they are not cacti. Oftentimes we have people putting in now drought-tolerant gardens, which are really beautiful, but they put in a lot of cactus. And that's everybody's garden is their own. Now let's think about Central California. How many cactus do we see that are occurring in the wild? It's not necessarily natural here, but you go down to the cliffs or in certain parts where you find the beautiful dudleyias and the sedum, and whether in pots or in the ground in sandy soil or rock gardens, they're a perfect plant for our climate, just not in the hot, boiling sun. So those are fun to try. Typical lawns require regular water all year, and irrigation efficiency is often poorly monitored. And I think all of us have seen this kind of situation, especially in commercially managed landscapes. It costs money to send somebody out there to go monitor things. And so they don't. They just let them run until somebody complains or they get fined for some reason. So our own water supply residential is limited. Demand is growing, prices are increasing, and restrictions are being imposed with fines levied. Has anybody been levied with a fine yet? Oh, good. Are they doing that here yet? Maybe, yeah. So just a little bit more informational things is of the potable water, this represents drinkable water in California as whole of a pie, 34% of it is being used for exterior residential purposes, so anything outside. And then I just heard a quote from Joe Biden, I think it was, that 50% of that is used on lawns. But you're here because you already know that. This is another native meadow that includes, is primarily with something called meadow sedge or Carex progressilis. And this is the kind of carex which is actually a running grass. There are bunch grasses or clumping grasses, and there are running grasses. And progressilis is a running one that will knit itself together. So it's the kind of thing that you can plant in small 4-inchers or 1 gallons, and it will start creating its own lawn. To help it do that, though, to keep it from looking just spotty when we first planted this up, we did plant the plugs, but we also planted some perennials, some annuals, and then lightly mulched in between, so that as it got established over the first year, and the carex had a chance to start reaching its roots out, then we helped suppress weeds to some extent, help keep the water in a little bit, and the perennials and the annuals for the first year made cover over the ground. And then because it's in such an urban area, weeds definitely have blown in, but the homeowner he likes to garden. And so he's the one that's been digging out the pernicious, the deep, the weeds that have the deep roots. The ones that are harder to get are just the little ones. And so he leaves the ones that are pretty, but takes out the others. There's monkey flower. I didn't list it on the list, but the monkey flower Eleanor, and everything else, it's hard to see what it is. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a monardella or coyote mint, and we'll see more of that soon. Then, as you know, chemicals and other pollutants from landscapes overflow untreated directly into our watersheds, rivers, groundwater, bays, and ocean. And we're really affected by that here on the coast because our water is, even though in some cases there's enough, per se, after a rain year like this, but in reality, our sources are not like the Hetch Hetchy, which the San Francisco Bay Area is just continues to suck that. But we have to be really careful because we're so directly connected to the Pacific Ocean, and we really want to have a healthy garden so that things continue or can flow in a healthy way.